my amazing guests. So my guest today is Rhonda Bowen. Rhonda, my opening monologue is always the same. I never introduce my guests, not being lazy, just that I don't think I would do a very good job. So if you would like to take as little time, as long time, whatever you want to share anything, highlights, lowlights, anything in between that you think would be useful for people to know about you, and maybe the context for today's conversation. And then we just jump into it from there.
Well, thank you very much, Colin. It's such a pleasure to be here with you today and having a chance to have a nice Friday afternoon conversation. That's something that doesn't happen so often. Most people are often running on Friday. It's great to have the time to share. My name is Rhonda Bowen. If you listen to my accent, you probably figure out that I was born somewhere in the US. That was in Pennsylvania. Many, many moons ago. I've lived in Germany since 1983 and had my own business here since 1988. I've gone from being an English teacher and a German teacher to working in big companies teaching all kinds of other things like communication and negotiation and meetings. And I work with people I call best professionals. So people in the fields of business, engineering, science, technology, meaning all the things I'm not. And the reason that that's important is because if you always talk to the people in your own tribe, they all understand you, they think the way that you do, they have the same jargon that you have. It's really easy to explain things to peers or colleagues. It's much more difficult to explain something to somebody who's totally outside of your range and doesn't know what you're talking about. And so when I help people with their communication, it's important to have somebody who sees things from a different perspective. So I'm the one who's classically bringing the outside perspective to things. And as of now, we are in the 2026 lunar year with the Chinese New Year just having started. And we are in the year of the fire horse. And that's a year where the Chinese people believe that it's important to be up and having lots of momentum and there's lots of energy in the room. And so the other thing I'm doing now, after 38 years of my own business, is I'm starting a global platform called the Midwise Alliance. And I suppose doing it in the year of the fire horse is probably a good idea because that means there's lots of energy and motion and momentum to keep us all going. And that's something maybe we can talk about today. Lots of people know me from what I've done in the past, but I think especially now in the year of the fire horse, it's important for what's going to happen in the future. So everything else that's coming up in 2026.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. There's loads of different places we can jump off, but I love the idea that because a lot of people, they stick to their lane, they always want to talk. And we always have this thing that, people just say, yes, yes. But when you look outside, you look left and right, there's so much stuff that we can help each other on. Or when we actually go into someone else's lane, the way that we explain something, terminology, and we have to break things down and make them simple, is really, really important because we can lose a lot of people very quickly. We have all this energy, momentum, like you say, but the way that we communicate that and the way it's done has to generally start off quite simple and straightforward rather than, sort of jumping 100 meters away. And so it's great that you're able to do that because often it's the other way around. We like the safety of keeping our crowd to our crowd, and we stay in our lane and we don't want to go either side. So I think that's something very amazing. On that, I mean, the conversation is really around AI today, and I think that's we can dive into Midwise in a second. But why I think this is a really important conversation because AI has been one of those things. I don't know how long, let's say a couple of years, it just seems the buzzword, just seems the thing that everyone's scrambling to do, chasing their tail. There's this almost sense of urgency, that you're too late to the party, you're missing everything. And I think I get the sense for myself that, it's just, well, if you don't know AI or if you've not mastered all these apps or whatever, you're behind and you're irrelevant and everything's wasted. And I think, and this is just my opinion, so I'd love your perspective on it. But actually, now we're at this moment where people have kind of rushed to almost embrace it or just to shove it in very aggressively into their work. So I've seen I've had conversations with companies that have just absolutely shoved it in any gap, any space, trying to take over anything they could just to almost put that AI stamp to say, yes, we're AI driven. And it's actually been for the detriment, because AI is not for everything. It's not like the one solution that solves everything. And I don't know if there was this misconception or how it came about, if that's human nature, but it was just like, all right, I'm just going to put AI into my business, and then I'm going to go for a big long lunch, and everything's going to run automatically and everything's going to be okay. And the reality is, it isn't designed that way. And I feel that there needs to be a lot more thought. So I feel there is now this step back. People are like, oh, okay, we don't need to do it so quickly. We need to be strategic, think about it, not in a scared of it way, but just go, well, what makes sense and where does it actually fit? And it's not about removing humans from work, I don't think. It's about complementing, adding, taking the things that we don't need to do that we can automate, or we can use this for, I don't know, quick connection. Again, you could please fill in all the gaps in my terminology or whatever I'm saying. But I think people are starting to get that, and they're almost starting again. And I've spoken to a few different people in different ways, and I think people have gone through that overwhelm, that scarcity, and now rolling back to start again. That's just my perception. Are you seeing the same thing? Like, pick any bones out of what I've just said, and yeah, we can go from there.
Well, first of all, let me show a parallel to that for something that happened a long, long time ago. As I said, I've been in business since 1983. And so when I first came to Germany, the whole point was people wanted me to go into big companies, all the names of which you would know, because they were American or Japanese or whatever companies. And they said all the German people need to be able to speak English to speak to other people in the company. And at that time, there were lots of German businessmen who didn't speak a lot of English, and women. So I was running around and going from company to company and having classes and doing all these things. And everybody at the beginning hated the fact that they had to be learning English. So I was working with a group of specialized mechanics at a car company because their new boss was now from Britain. And when he came over, they were supposed to be reporting on these 24-hour tests they were doing and all these things. And they said, Rhonda, why should I be learning to do this? I'm a car mechanic. And when I talk, first of all, I don't talk to the car. And if I talk to anybody, I talk to my colleagues. And, I don't need to learn all this English stuff. Well, at some point, we got through that and everybody got over it. But then we got into the swing of the pendulum, where I would sit in a room where there would be 6 German-speaking people, native German-speaking people, and there would be one person coming from an English-speaking country, but who also spoke some German. And then they pushed and said, oh, but we all have to speak English. And I was like, stop and think about what you're talking about. Let's look at what's going on here. This person in the room, if he understands most of what's going on, even if he doesn't speak German well, if he picks it up, it's so much easier for him to speak English, and you all speak German.
Yeah.
But nobody thought about that. And I think what you mentioned with AI is we're going through a very similar thing now about, we all have to do this now. Whatever this is, and we're all jumping in and trying to figure these things out. And as you said, there's nothing wrong with everybody learning to speak English or German or whatever the language is, but it's also being, I don't know, just to decide to look at the situation itself and say, what is the appropriate thing for this situation? If there are 6 German speakers in the room and one person who understands, it is not making any sense for everybody to speak English.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now with AI, it's the fact that it's not only like another language, which you can compare it to a certain extent, but my title for the world is a global strategic communication guide. And AI is now one more set of communication that goes on top of all the other things that I've always worked with and been able to talk about. And therefore, now when we say, so what am I doing with AI? It's got to be the same thing. You have to master what it is that's important for you to master. I grew up without a computer. So guess what? I'm never going to master the tech. behind this. What I master is how to use it and how to show other people how to use it. The same thing I did when I was teaching people how to do things in different languages. And so the important thing is to find out not only what is it doing and what can it do, because you can't keep up with that anymore. There's a website, I forgot to check it before we came on today. When I started looking at this website first in 2023, it had 13,000 apps. The last time I looked at it, it had 43,000 apps, and I haven't looked at it in a while, so I'm sure it's much a lot more than that now. And the name of the site is There's an AI for That. I could go in every single day and not keep up with all of the things that are in that website. And although I do try to keep up with certain newsletters and things, the whole point is to talk to somebody about what it is you want to do and what you want to improve on. What do you think that you can make more efficient or more effective? The word is more. You're enhancing whatever it is that you already do. And how can AI do the things that A, you're not good at, B, are totally repetitive? So why do you need to keep doing the same thing over and over again? Because it can do it much faster. And in many cases, much better, because it just has a wider view of things than any one of our brains has. And of course, to do the things that we're not good at, because if it's better than we are, our results in the end are better as well. So that's why in the old days, if you had people from two languages and neither of them spoke, you brought in an interpreter. An interpreter spoke both languages. That person knew how to talk to each person and do that. In a way, that's something that's happening with AI now. It's speaking to the machine and we're speaking to it, and it's sort of going back and forth. In a lot of places, it's working like an interpreter, and therefore knowing what you need for what is what's really important. And that's what I'm trying to help people with the most. I'm not an expert in anything, and I am not the tech guru who can explain how it works in the background, but I can tell you what's helpful for what it is that you're doing in your life.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes down to asking better questions. And I've heard this a lot, so I used to work in projects, I used to work in banking, and people just wanted to automate processes, and that was like a bit of a buzzword, automation. And the thing is, if something's broken and something doesn't work, automating it just means that it's an automated broken process. So it's
Exactly.
and I feel we should slow down to speed up. We seem to have got caught in this like tsunami of AI everywhere. Like you say, you look around and there's a new app, and I think there are people capitalizing on that sort of you're behind, so they can sell you a course so you can master all of these apps. But I like the way that you're doing that, because you're strategically saying, look, hang on, whoa, just look at your business, because that's very clever in so many ways, not just because of AI, because how many companies actually really look at their business? They kind of get swept up. I'm even thinking about my business and what I do. And you're working in the business, you kind of want to work on the business, right, and just see what makes sense. So that pause might feel scary at first, like you're going to be behind, but the reality is you're saying, whoa, because I think the conversations I've had with people that have said they've started to put AI in, they actually have created so much more work for themselves already that they're like, okay, now I need to go and refer to AI for this. Now I need to do that. And then I need to go down a rabbit hole of sort of updating like the persona of what it needs to answer. And so it's like, well, hang on, no. The idea is to help you. And that's always been the case with tech, as far as I can see. And we do fall into this trap of we're slaves to tech, but actually tech should be slaves to us. I don't, slave's not a great word, but you kind of get the picture. Yeah. And I think slowing down, being intentional, looking at, I'd say, and I loved your example of, the 6 German-speaking guys. And oftentimes that can't happen by the people in the company because they're too busy, often for good reasons, sometimes not, doing the stuff. And so that outside perspective coming in, and like you said at the beginning, when you don't know anything about that company or whatever, I think that's almost like a gift, because you can go in and go, I don't know, explain it to me like I'm
Mhm.
a child.
Yeah.
And then you get very basic, very easy language, and then you go, and then you can be like a child and go, why? And just keep
Mhm.
asking that why question. And I think that will bring such a reframe of AI, move away from this scarcity that we're behind, that we need to do this. And I'm wondering why we've fallen for that. What I just, your
Well,
perspective, why do we?
that's old brain programming, and I mean really old, like Neanderthal programming. I mean, I live an hour away from Neanderthal, and so where all of those people were running around at the time. No, our brains are set up, and still are after all these millions of years. Our brains are set up that the most important thing our brain is supposed to do is keep us safe. And so anytime something new comes, in the old days, it was a saber-toothed tiger. You know, you walked out of the cave, and if there was a tiger outside, then you had these three options. You know, you could try to fight the tiger, maybe not such a good idea. You could fall on the ground and play dead and hope, you know, when you freeze that nothing happens. Or you could run away or run back into the cave or whatever. So flight. And this classic thing about what do you do in the face of danger is exactly what anything that's happening in the media or anywhere else is always trying you to get to the point where you don't feel good about something, because that makes you go into activity. And so the minute you say, oh, I'm behind on AI and I don't understand it all and I'm all overwhelmed, as you said, somebody wanting in the sense of marketing or advertising to say, oh, you just have to buy our thing and then you're safe again, because then you understand everything you need to know about AI. Well, first of all, AI doesn't work like that, because I've been doing this permanently now for over 3 years, and I still don't know everything, and I'm one of the people I think who's really trying to keep up. I've also been for the past 2 years, and will be going again this year, to the AI for Good Summit of the United Nations in Geneva, Switzerland, where everybody comes, and talks about things for a whole week. And so as much as I get all of that wonderful input, I still don't consider myself an expert. And I think at the moment, nobody in the world is a complete expert at AI. There are just too many flavors of, ice cream, if you will, and there are just too many ways you can be using this. And there are people who are very good at certain things. There are people like me who are sort of more generalist and trying to keep up with things in general. But for me, I think the important thing is, as with anything, if you walked into a car company and you were in the dealership and there were all these different cars there, and the car salesman comes up to you, well, you know what he's going to want to sell you: the most expensive car on the lot. But if he doesn't ask you, what are you doing with your car? And if you say, I'm 80 years old and all I need to do is drive to get food once a week and drive back, I don't need the most expensive car in the dealership. And so the whole point is understanding what you need, first of all, is the most important thing to decide what you want to be doing with this. And no, you're not behind, because if that's the case, everybody's behind. And as with anything, choosing the part that is right for you is what's most important. And for years, I've spent going into companies and talking about a communication audit, which is a 10-page document, which said, who are you talking to? What do you need from them? What do they need from you? We sit down for 2 hours and go through the whole thing. I've now made that into an AI document. So now when you go in and talk to people, you say, so what is it you're doing in the company? What's working well? What are the processes that are broken? Maybe not broken in the sense of not working well, but just not doing the things, getting the results that you want. And how can AI help you with that? So it's the same process as we've always had. We're just applying it to something new that we didn't have before. I don't know if that helps, Colin.
Yeah, it does. It's very interesting, because oftentimes we think that we're reinventing the wheel, like we're coming up with something, but so many times we're not. We're just old ways of doing things just tweaked slightly. Actually, it's such a great way. Just replace communication with AI, and
Yeah.
I like that, because it makes it feel very doable in this world of AI confusion. Look over here, no, look over here. And
Mhm.
you can go back to basics and go, look, let's just follow this almost little step guide to go
Yes.
where we are. And that feels very comforting to me. I don't know if that's my type of personality, but you go, oh, okay, let's slow down. Let's look, let's just ask straightforward, but good questions, not,
Mhm.
weird questions. And I think that's really great. So is that why you created Midwise? Is that, is that, or is that something else? Is that what you're trying to do, but on a global scale, have more people like you go into companies and do this?
Well, no, because Midwise is for something else. And Midwise is, I had a friend years ago in Africa who wanted me to be part of a program. And she said, yeah, I want you to make a recording of something. And I said, okay. And I sat down and I thought about it. And I said, this has to have an interesting name so that people want to listen to it because they don't know who I am. And I came up with the wow effect, WOW. And wow means a number of things throughout the presentation, but the first thing it meant was the wise old woman. And that was me. And so I'm in the place now in my life where the last couple of years I've been watching what's going on in the world, as we all have. And I have, for 38 years, been traveling all over the world. I've worked with people in the same room from more than 70 countries in many, many places around the world. And I have experienced so many of these best professionals, a lot of scientists, a lot of engineers, a lot of tech people who are so wonderful at what they do and are so great as people, but they tend to be reserved, some of them even shy, many of them introverted, meaning they prefer to think inside and not think outside, like me as an extrovert. And they sit there and they're in meetings and they come up to me afterwards during the coffee break and say the most magical things, but they never say them in a context where there are lots of people around for all those various reasons. And I said, the whole world is looking at things at the upper end of things when we're now looking at AI. I don't know, people like Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and, fill in the blank with all the names that we all hear about all the time. And the other people we hear about all the time are all the poor people whose village has just been hit by an earthquake, or where there's been a flood, or where there's war, or there's something going on, and all those poor people. So where are we hearing things? We're hearing things at the edges. We're hearing things at the ends of the spectrum. But most of us, you and I assume most of the people who are listening and watching us today, we all belong in the middle. And nobody is paying attention to the middle, because there's nothing that's really cool or there's nothing that's really terrible. So our brain isn't going into shock. And therefore, we're missing the most important thing in the world, which is what I call the wisdom from the middle of society. And that's why I've started what I'm calling the Midwise, middle of society, the wisdom, the Midwise Alliance, to find a place for those people who have all of that wisdom and don't have a place to express it, don't have a place to work together with other people, as you and I are today. We're co-creating this time together. And for me, co-creation is very important because none of us got where we are by ourselves. We always do better if we're doing it together with someone. And of course, to be able to monetize this in a way that is effective for what the World Bank calls the 4 tiers of countries. So everything that will be happening in Midwise that has to be paid for, lots of things that won't be paid for, but those that do, you will buy tokens, going back to AI, you'll buy tokens for things. But if you and I buy a token and it costs €1, for example, because we live in Europe and we're at a higher level in the World Bank ranking, people who live in a very poor country in the middle of nowhere, I have a friend there, so I'll just use Nepal as an example. I have a friend who's a professor in Nepal. He doesn't have as much money as you and I have to buy things. So when he buys a token, he will maybe be in the 4th level. And so he will only maybe pay 20 cents for a token, meaning everybody will buy the same tokens, but people will pay different amounts of money for them. And for me, making sure that there are so many people in the world, including colleagues in parts of the world where the money is in a very different place than ours, have come up to me and said, we'd be in a program that was being run through an American company, and they'd say, Rhonda, you're American. Can't you go to them and tell them I can't come to the program anymore if they don't give me a discount because it's too expensive and I can't afford it, but I want to be in the program. And I've always said nobody should not be able to be in a program just because in the country where they live, the amount of money they have, the currency they use, all of those things work against them when they have to compare themselves with everybody else in the world. And because the world runs so much on these things that are in what we call the Western world, what are we losing by not being able to take advantage of all of those wonderful people who can't be part of the system? So the Alliance is a place to make sure that everybody who has wisdom from the middle of society also has a fair chance to explain that, to bring what it is that they want to bring to the table, but also to be able to partake in things that many of us just take for granted, but it's certainly not for them.
That's there's so much in that is very powerful. I'm just wondering, has that been in the back of your mind for a while? How to, because we have this, like you say, almost elitist, depending on where we were, often a lot of that is down to luck and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But to bring this into balance, and there's so many amazing, smart people that just don't have access to the resources that we do in the Western world. And I don't know, we sometimes have this look and go, well, no, that's, they wouldn't know that because they didn't have access to a computer. But that can also be a great thing. They have this wisdom and you can bring that into it. And it's like everyone's welcome to this party. It doesn't matter who you are. But I'm just wondering, have you had this vision for a long time? Or is this just a new thing, or is it a combination of ideas over years? How does it work?
Well, it's a combination of ideas over years, but the most important thing is that AI is now making this possible. I mean, I could have tried to start this 10 years ago, probably wouldn't even have thought of it because I would have said, how would I ever do this? I'm planning to make the Alliance an AI first company, which means there will be very few people actually working in the company once we get it set up, because it won't need that. But on the other hand, I think the important thing is when something new like AI emerges, I will call it. I mean, AI has been around for a long time, but I mean, when it really comes to the fore in our society, as it has since 2022, for example, then our brains open up, at least mine does, to other opportunities. And the thing that I have always thought, which is so important, and now it is wonderful because we're in a trifecta, if you will. I grew up on a dairy farm. So I grew up with lots of animals and lots of fields and forests and ponds and all those kinds of things in nature. And when I think back to, especially like my grandparents' generation, and all of those things that people knew just because they knew them from nature and the way they grew up. And there is so much intelligence in nature, and everything that we've done as humans since whenever has always gone, first of all, on the back of nature. Nature was there first, and then we came in. And now we're making this next evolution into artificial intelligence. So I'm saying in the midwise, we are looking at everything that happens through natural and human and artificial intelligence, and bringing the three of those together, because there is so much we are now discovering about nature because we can do things with artificial intelligence. For example, when I was in Geneva and at the AI convention, one of the gentlemen got up and said, well, when we record whales when they're swimming in the ocean, and they have these whale songs, is what people usually call them. They said, now we can use AI and we can say that when whales talk to each other, and you can take away, what's happening, and you can actually see what's going on. He said, two whales talking to each other can talk about a third whale that is not there. We do that as well, with you and me, with you and me, it's you and I, but then there's the he or the she or the it, wherever it is,
Wow.
Whales do that as well. So who are we to think that we as people are doing such more wonderful? There are lots of things that now we'll be able to figure out because of AI, where we find out that nature is probably so far ahead of us in lots of other things. And if we're going to make the world a better place, which is what the Alliance is trying to do in a very special way, and many other wonderful organizations are doing that as well. If we look at what nature and what people and what artificial intelligence bring together, that's a way we can really make progress and move forward, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love that, the idea of nature, because nature is so wise, right? And we all watch well, maybe documentaries. So Richard Attenborough does
Yes.
Sir David Attenborough, I think. Sorry, does these nature programs, and they're so engrossing to watch, and just that the whole nature and how from animals to plants to everything, just and I I don't think there's many people that watch those programs that don't get caught into there. And there's so much wisdom, and nature's been around for so long. Yet we kind of go, no, it's quite an egotistical way to go, no, we've got the answers. And you
Yes.
go, well, hang on, this thing has existed for so long and it's so wise, and how it protects, reproduces, just so much. And I love the fact, that example of the whales, and you go, oh, now it's just basically bringing like a pair of glasses and seeing the world in such a through a different lens, and you go, oh, it's almost like X-ray, and you go, oh, now we can use this to understand so much more about nature, about ourselves, how things that we just didn't. And because when I started this conversation, I was thinking about AI and just how we're just trying to race for business sake. We're just trying to go, oh yeah, I want to win the business race, that I'm the biggest company. But it's like, that's kind of not irrelevant. People are always going to want to do this. There's always like that human nature part. But this is very just looking around and going, okay, what do we already have here? Now, what do we have in terms of the AI? And just looking around and going, wow, just marvel in that for a moment and just start to explore that. That feels like a playground, like an amazing playground for experts, people that are interested. That opens up such a big world, right? Like, just huge.
Let me give you two examples from when I was in Geneva last year. One is one I had seen on the website, and I went and found the stand right away because I found it so fascinating. It's a robot called a Roboa, like robot and like boa from boa constrictor. And what it basically looks like is like a tin or a can on the front, and there's a long, long, long hose behind it. And inside this front head or can or tin, you can put all kinds of things. You can put loudspeakers, you can put microphones, you can put cameras, you can put lights, you can put all these things. And the reason you do that is because this thing is made to, for example, when there's an earthquake and there's a whole pile of rubble where the building has fallen down, and they are looking for people inside the rubble. Well, the classic thing we all know is people go with these specially trained dogs, and the dogs are running around on top of the rubble and smelling and trying to find the people, which is a great thing. This goes through the rubble.
Oh, the gaps.
And when it finds a person, wherever it is, A, you know exactly where it is because of the sensors. B, you can speak to that person. That person can speak back to you because there's cameras and lights and microphones and loudspeakers and all of those things included. And it snakes its way through the rubble until it finds the person. And there's a GPS, so it knows exactly where that person is. The dog is way up on top, and maybe it knows and maybe it doesn't. This thing knows exactly where the people are.
Wow. What happened when you were talking, my brain just went, there is so much creativity that we can unlock because of this. And then I started thinking about, people in, that don't have access to all of these things, but often they have access to nature. They have wisdom. I'm thinking of, I don't know, like Aborigines and stuff like that. My geography is terrible, but they live off of the land. They understand medicines. They understand so much, and you've just kind of blown my mind, because I go, this feels like it could be endless in terms of creativity, bringing that sort of knowledge from people that have all that wisdom. And we seem to think of wisdom as in, okay, yes, I do a function, like you said, I work in a factory or a job or a
Mhm.
computer, but the wisdom is wisdom of life,
Oh,
wisdom
yes.
of plants, of nature, and everything like that. And the combination of that human element, that technology, and just that creativity, that that feels endless to me.
Yes.
That is quite something.
Well, and that's why the Alliance says that we're co-creating, and we're using all three of these. We're using natural and human and artificial intelligence to come up with the best solutions. And that's exactly what we're doing it for. And the whole point is that letting all of those people who would normally not be jumping up and down and saying, look, here I am, they're the ones that are sometimes bringing the deepest ideas. They're the ones who, for example, who are coming and saying, well, what if we tried this? But if they never get the chance to express that where anybody else finds out about it in
Yeah.
a way that suits them, that's why in the Alliance, we don't have just one way of doing things. We have many different ways of doing things, and people can decide themselves what they want to do. We've already started a blog, for example, and people who really prefer to write and would never come on camera like you and I are doing it now, they write and they keep sending me blogs, and we keep putting them out because they are bringing perspectives that none of us would ever think about. And they're from all different places in the world, from all different kinds of backgrounds. And we have the blog just set in those three areas: natural, human, artificial intelligence. And people write something and we put it in one of the categories, and you can go in and read all of these wonderful things from people that you've never heard of, that you'll never see physically, but you get to see their wisdom because you get to read what they've written,
Wow.
for
I
example.
um I also think that we have this thing about self-belief. Sometimes we don't believe anything something is possible because of a belief in ourselves. We think, oh,
Mhm.
yeah, I couldn't be the person that changed the world, or that's a
Yeah.
huge belief. But when you have access to people that are putting that out, that builds that belief and go, oh, and I love the fact that you see, and I don't necessarily like labels in terms of extroverted, introverted, etc.,
Mhm.
because I think sometimes that can limit us, and it depends if your situation, if you're more outgoing, etc. But
Yeah.
I think I really understand the purposes of why you see it that way.
Mhm.
But I've been in so many situations, meetings, etc., where there are people that are just absolutely brilliant, and they talk to you after the meeting, not in front of people, because there's a lot of egos at the table. They don't want the spotlight, and there is this part where they come up to you and you go, that's genius, that would have changed that whole meeting. But they feel comfortable
Mhm.
in that one-to-one setting or around the people that they trust, because put the spotlight on them and they're going to freeze. That's not the environment where they thrive. And the fact that you see that and acknowledge all of these different ways of working and how people can do it, and allow them to bring out in different modalities in different ways, that for me, that's quite unheard of. I've not come across people that see it, because we have like the A type people that like to run the meeting and they're oftentimes extroverted, etc. But you're bringing those together in such a clever way. And again, I guess that comes down to the human side of it, and I guess your experience of seeing all these different people and connecting with them in different scenarios, different situations, in different countries, cultures, etc. Because culture can even be a thing, right? Like
Yeah. Sure.
I've worked with a Japanese company, and there might be someone in that meeting that has a brilliant idea, and it's not because they're shy, it's just out of respect that they wouldn't speak up,
Mhm.
because it's the hierarchy is a very important thing in Japan. And so you're able to dismantle a lot of these cultural things in a way, and just bring all of this knowledge together. And I think that's such a beautiful way of doing, because it's so intrinsically linked and thought through, and that's amazing. My question that I want to ask about that, how so you've got things like blogs, what other things are coming out? I'm thinking courses, but I'm thinking very generic stuff now that I don't want to.
Well, it's a really simple system, and it's because people say, I don't know if nature says that, but I guess it does as well. One of the best shapes in the world is a hexagon with 6 sides, because 6 sides seems to fit and is very strong when you put hexagons together. They link very well together and they're supported by each other. So the alliance has 6 parts, and they each start with S, which makes it easy for people to remember, I hope. So let me just give you a quick overview. The first is the structure. So if you think about this, my analogy to this is when you go into a small town or a village someplace in many parts of the world, you go into the center of wherever that is, and there's a marketplace. There's an open space where people gather either for the market when they want to buy and sell things, or where they have celebrations or whatever. There's this open space in the middle, and all of the important things are around it in many cases in a classic societal section. So the structure for us is the foundation of everything that's going on within this entire structure. And it's like the mission and the vision and the values and all of those things you think about for structure and how the whole system functions. Then we have share. Share is sort of like a post office, if you want to think in the good old days when we also had post offices. Denmark is getting rid of all their post offices and their letters, for example. But share is the place where you go to give information or some input to other people. So we have 3 different ways to do that. One is the blog, which is called Scriberion. One is going to be a section about wishes for the future, which is going to be called Fascinion from Fascinate. And the other one is going to be what I'm calling, to make it easier for people to understand, a reverse podcast, which is the word for it is Vocurion. And a Vocurion means that if somebody is one of those people, like one of my clients for a time who was discussing with me one day about sewing clothing. And I made all of my clothing when I was growing up. Until I went to college, I sewed all of my own clothing. So I know something about sewing. And this lady was talking to me, and she was just a wealth of information. And she was talking about things where I said, oh, wow, this is even way beyond what I was doing when I was sewing all the time. And I looked at her and I said, you should go on a podcast. You know so much about sewing. You could help so many. And just don't talk to me, talk to lots of people about this. She said, Rhonda, I could never be on a podcast. I said, well, why not? I said, if it's about sewing and you know so much about sewing. She said, what if they asked me a question I couldn't answer? And that was when the idea came for what I'm calling a reverse podcast. I know so many of these wonderful people who would never go on a podcast. What if I can't answer the question? So I'm going to be inviting people to come. I will officially still be the host just because it's in the alliance, but they will bring the questions, not me.
Okay.
Meaning when they bring the questions and they ask me something, whatever the something is, it doesn't matter what it is, I will give my really short whatever answer and I will put it back to them. And they get the chance to talk about the things they want to talk about in the way they want to talk about it, not what I think. I'm just sort of the catalyst, getting it going. But when they come in and they bring their own questions, it doesn't matter what I say. It matters what they say. Yeah. And they get the chance to do it in the way that they want.
Yeah, you're the fire lighter for the fire, right?
Exactly.
I just as a separate point, why I'm wondering what part of the worry that they said, if there's a question someone's going to ask that I don't know, what part of the human psyche is that? Because I was thinking perfectionism or something, but I don't know.
Well, perfectionism is the highest level of that, but it's basically a matter of whether you're confident enough also to say, I don't know if I don't know. I mean, I've been asked millions of things in my life that I didn't know because I've had the chance to work with so many different people, and people come with all kinds of questions that I don't know about. But you have to have the confidence in yourself to say, I'm sorry, I don't know that. but I'm going to go and see if I can find out, and then I'll get back to you. But of course, people who haven't had that happening in their whole lives, and especially people who are very good at what they do, but they don't talk to other people. And it's the fear of the unknown, the same thing we have about going out of the cave and there's the saber-toothed tiger in front of us. What do I do if that question comes and I don't know what to do? It's flight, or freeze again. What would I say? Oh, I wouldn't know what to say. Then then they'd be all nervous. Then they wouldn't be able to talk about anything. And that's the whole point. It's the insecurity that comes when you don't know something. You don't know how to deal with it in that moment. As I said, I'm just fortunate because I've had millions of questions in my life that I couldn't answer, but most people don't have that. And therefore, giving them a safe space to work in, because when they're asking the questions, then there's no problem because they know what they want to talk about, and it makes it much easier then for everybody.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I've worked in many corporate settings where, the spotlight is on you and they ask you a question. It feels that you can't say, I don't know, because for some reason you're then deemed incapable, and you go, well, it's unrealistic. But I like, and there is courage in that. I think once you practice the idea of saying, I don't know, that's okay. But that takes a lot, especially when the spotlight is on you in very not high pressure situations. Sometimes we make things too pressured for no reason, ego inflation, etc. But and then I was thinking, rather than solve that problem for those people, you've reverse engineered it, which is really great, because otherwise, let's say they wouldn't show up if they didn't know 100% previously, and that 20% is what that question they wouldn't know. But now you're not losing the 80% they would have brought you, that wisdom of 80%. You're getting access to that 80%.
Exactly.
They're going to feel great. Probably they're going to build confidence anyway in the fact that they're going to do a podcast, which they never thought that they would, but they're going to show up and talk about that. And that's, honestly, it just feels like a win-win, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing. Oh, okay. And is there, so you've talked about the blog.
That was the second S. Yeah, that was the second S. So that's the share, and those 3 different ways to share.
Yeah.
And then the third S is search. So that's the whole thing about in life, as we said, we're here to co-create, not only between nature and humans and artificial intelligence, but among people as well. And of course, as we said, the fact that you get such a better outcome or result if you do it with other people or with other modalities instead of doing it by yourself. There will be a search where you can put out a profile and say, I'm willing to help people with ABC, whatever is good for you. And I'm looking for help with this and this and this and this. And there's a matching thing that works together so that people who need help can come and find people and be given recommendations, and then they can decide if it works or not. There are lots of places online that do matching, and I don't mean dating matching. I mean also this kind of matching. This isn't anything new, but for people who are not actively looking for something, they often never get the chance to help. Whereas if you have a profile and you're willing to help, and then somebody comes along and your profile is matched and you say, oh, there's this person. Somebody matched me on a matching thing the other day about a woman who's very good with things with data. I am not a numbers person whatsoever. I'm hoping that next week we actually get a chance to talk to each other, because I'm fascinated that her whole life is data. And I can't even imagine that, because for me, that's one of my biggest nemesis, is not being able to do data at all. But see, that's the whole point. I'm sure we can help each other with things, because we're all both good at one thing and maybe not so good at the other one. And then we can fill those gaps. So the search is bringing people together who need to be together. And once people are together, and this is my personal part, which I love the most, I'm the woman who says, I'm calling myself for the Alliance the Patrona of Possibilities. So the idea of patron, which has 2 parts to it, if you come from a religious background, like a patron saint, the person who takes care of all of the people in a group, all the fishermen or all the travelers or all the whatever those are. I didn't grow up in the Catholic faith, so I don't know all the names. But there are these people who take care of people who do something. And then there's the idea of a patron. If you're the patron of a restaurant, you go there and you buy food and you help the restaurant continue to happen because of that. And I'm calling myself the Patrona of Possibilities. I'm just that person who knows lots and lots of different people in lots of different places, has access to a lot of different things. And every time people come and talk to me, they always say, oh, Rhonda, no matter what I ask you, you know somebody, or you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, and you can help me find out what it is. And my other big fascination in life that I absolutely love, and I'm just naturally good at it, is facilitating group discussions. So when people come together and want to have a meeting about something and they get stuck or they don't even know how to start, coming together and having, again, that outside perspective, I don't care what the result is at the end. I just want to make sure that everybody in the room is getting the chance to play fair. Everybody gets a chance to cooperate and bring something into the discussion. And at the end, you come up with whatever it is you're looking for, or at least the next step to that. So being the facilitator is my thing. And I have 6 proprietary ways of facilitating, which I call success swarms, based on different kinds of animals and what they do in the world, and how we can come together and not just brainstorm, but do lots of other things in ways that are easier for people than just having all of the extroverts throwing out their stuff and the loud people being the loudest. The Alliance is not a place for loud people. It's a place for wisdom, and wisdom often comes very softly or very carefully, or even very cautiously sometimes, but it's still really wonderful when it comes out. Then we have the sustain element. That's something sort of like the bank, if you will. And it's this, as I said, this idea that we have equality based on tokens on 4 different levels, so that people can come in. If you would like to bring your business into the Alliance, you can do that. You can set up a stand on the market. You know, just like on the market, there's somebody who sells bread, and there's somebody who sells flowers, and there's somebody who sells, I don't know what, shoes. Everybody can come and bring whatever it is they want to sell, but it will be in this 4-level system, so that when you know that somebody from, I don't know, from France buys something and they're at level 1, they will be paying more for it than people at level 4. But when you come in and bring in your business, you get all of the money for what you're doing, except a commission, which goes to the Alliance for setting up the platform and doing everything. But the whole point is you will make 80% more if you sell it to somebody in France than if you sell it to somebody in Malawi or someplace, you know. But if you come in and you agree that this is an important thing, and you want to have people who normally would never have access to what you do, now they'll have access, because they'll be able to pay for what it is that you do in a way that suits them, and not just in a way that suits the seller. So again, it's this co-creating a system where people can actually work. And then the 6th S is spread. So it's having like sister cities, like other organizations that work together all over the world. The United Nations is wonderful, you know, with all of their different things, but there are lots of wonderful organizations around the world, and they are all specialized in things that the Alliance is not. So having those interactions with other organizations to make sure that things are getting done, or that we have access to things that maybe we don't provide, but others do, and we can have that as an interaction as well.
I'm blown away. How long has this been in the making? Because this is deep, considered, multi-layered, across so many different problems, personalities, challenges, bringing it all together, but in how long has this taken? Because it blows my mind what you're doing.
Well, I suppose you could say it's taken 67 years, because that's how long I've been on the planet. But the actual things that we're actually getting into, it's been about a year and a half. And I hope next week we will finally get the last questions answered that we need. And the Midwise Alliance is going to be a company registered in Estonia as an e-company. I am now an e-resident of Estonia. So I'm an American person with an American passport living in Germany with permanent residence in Germany. My husband's German and we live in Germany, but I wanted to make sure, and there are a number of places in the world that offer companies a chance to come in and set up and be global, whatever that means. But Estonia has been doing e-companies since 2014. There are 3 million people in Estonia living there. It's a very small country, and I worked there in 1992 for the first time. So I've been around Estonia for a very long time. But the nice thing about Estonia is when they decided to make e-companies, there are more than 100,000 e-companies around the world of people not living in Estonia. So the important thing about having an e-company in Estonia is you apply for e-residency. You get a nice little card that shows that, yes, you're an e-resident of Estonia. And I will then be able to actually set up the alliance as an Estonian company. And what's important for that, Colin, is not only you could bring in your business and set up a market stand and be part of what's going on in the alliance, but if you decided you love this so much and you actually want to be part of the actual system itself, you can become an e-resident of Estonia and be part of the company. And anybody in the world can become an e-resident of Estonia and be part of the company. So this is not restricted to anyone anywhere. So anybody who would like to be in this, let's just say as a participant, either in doing things like giving us blogs or doing other things to help, but those who actually want to do the monetization part of it and, you know, have a market stand, but even those who say, I would just like to be a director in this company, they could do that as well. And as I said, all you need is to be an official part of the company. All you need is an e-residency card, and anybody, anywhere can join.
So is that why you picked Estonia? Because they're very open to that collaboration anywhere around the world?
Well, I mean, other countries do that as well. I mean, if I wanted to, I could go set up an LLC in Delaware in the US. I could do that. I mean, that would be an option as well. But the interesting thing is that the fact that Estonia has been doing all of this completely online since 2014, meaning nobody will ever have to go to Estonia, ever. Everything in the government is completely digital. Everything you do for the government, and I now have access to the government system because now I'm an e-resident. So everything I want to do when I want to set up the company, all these things, all of that happens online, which means anybody in the world who would want to do anything with a company has the same and the fair chance to do that.
Yeah, because I was just, I wasn't quite making the connection, but when you said no one has to go there, because you go, yeah, when you have to set up a company, you have to go and sign some papers and stuff like that. And I'm like,
digital. Yeah,
because this comes back to access to everybody anywhere, right?
Exactly.
I'm blown away with the amount of consideration this has gone into this. Is this just you, or it's just like a collaboration with people?
No, at the moment, it's just me. Yeah. I mean, it won't stay that way forever, but I have to get the official foundation set up first in Estonia. And I have an appointment with a lawyer next week from a group in Estonia who will hopefully be able to set up the company for me, because there has to be an official address and things, obviously. But they will be my service providers, and they'll take care of the taxation and the accounting and all of those things that have to be done for a business, because it is a business in the end. But I don't have to go there to do that. I can do it all online.
Wow.
And anybody that wants to come and join us afterwards can also do it with us online.
Yeah, honestly, I'm blown away. I don't really know how to explain that other than that I'm blown away. What's the next steps? Because I'm thinking, you know, this is all brand new information to me, obviously, but obviously you've got to market this. You obviously have connections around the world. What's the next step of bringing the awareness? Is that the route that you're going down, marketing, etc.? What's the next steps for you?
Well, we've had a company page on LinkedIn for a while, and we have, I don't know, like 60 followers or something, which is great. So we've been doing this for a few months. The problem, of course, until you have an official residence somewhere for taxation purposes and everything, you can't really start building a company until you do that. And I couldn't do that until I got my e-residency, you know, and it takes a while to set these things up. But what I'm looking forward to now, and I think there's a reason why these things have been taking so long. Somebody up there is taking good care of us. because now with all the things that AI can be doing for us, I want this to be an AI first company, which means that anything like all of the digitalization that's gone into the Estonian system um, will be part of that. But of course, a lot of the things that we're setting up, once the automation works, once we know how to put in the profiles for the search, AI can do a very good job of getting people together. And I'm on other platforms that do that already. So there are lots of things now that will be so much easier and so much more effective because AI will be able to do those things. If I'd started this 10 years ago, this would have been a mammoth project. And I mean, it's still not small, but the thing is, now I can go out and look for the people who can help me put in the right tech. Then I can go out and look for the people who can help me with financing this and making sure that as long as it's getting set up, until we get the people in the marketplace and things, that it works. But of course, once it's up and running, then I can just be making sure that it finds ways to grow.
Yeah.
But that's what the spread component is for, so that once somebody knows about it, they can tell other people about it.
Yeah.
I don't see this as being something that's going to have a huge marketing or an advertising budget. I'm an organic person by trade, have always been for my own business as well. And I always think if you come into things with the right intention and you explain to people why this is important to you and what it is you want to achieve, you will find the right people to help you do that. And recently I've been finding lots of right people and systems and all kinds of other things to help. So I'm just letting it unfold as it unfolds. And I plan to be around for a while. So I'm just watching it as it grows. It's like when you plant the seed, you have to keep putting on the water and the sunshine and all the things to see what kind of a tree it comes out as.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about your comment. If you'd have tried to do this 10 years ago, then I think that would have been very difficult. But it almost, we talked at the beginning about the year of the fire horse.
Yes.
And you go, oh yeah, because you're basically building from the ground up in a environment which is AI rich in many ways. And you can go, oh, I'm not having to put AI on top of something that's existed. You're building with AI, and that's I'm like, yep, that feels very serendipitous, if you can say that.
Yep.
And I was thinking, okay, and then that whole marketing side of things, it's such a smart way, because I've done my own business and I feel that I spend a lot of money. I have done in the past on ads and stuff like that, but the best time was just the most success I've ever had is just word of mouth and just showing up. And it's actually such a good filter, because there are companies that will just take your money and send you whatever it is to loads of people, even if you try and target people. But that word of mouth, the type of people that are connected, I would imagine it even moves faster, because you are just one person. Yes, you're well connected, understandably, but if you go down and it just goes very quick through these people, and when people are excited about things and they show up, they talk. We sometimes forget that, and those messages, that communication between all of those can move very fast, and without having gatekeepers in the way. Does that make sense? Like, people controlling that and charging you for all of that. So honestly, just, you blow my mind. And the fact that you're 67, where most people are thinking about retired or already retired, this feels like you've probably started your next life and this is what you're going for. So how do you feel about it? Are you excited? You nervous? What
Oh, I'm excited. I am absolutely enthralled with this. It's my new baby. I always say now. I'm moving house also as well this year. It is the year to be doing all these wonderful things. And I think the important thing is, I grew up on a farm, as I said, and when we had cows that were getting ready to give birth to calves, we had certain cows that were very precious and cost a lot of money and were very important to the herd. And my father and my grandfather took 2-hour shifts waking up in the night to go check on this cow if she was getting ready to give birth, because it was so important, or because she'd had problems giving birth in the past or whatever. And they do this maybe for 3 nights in a row and the calf wouldn't come, and I just remember my grandfather always saying, but we still have to go and check every 2 hours so we don't miss it, when it happens. But we can't make it go any faster than it does. And when the time is right, either I'll be there or your father will be there, or we'll be on our way there, if it's in between the 2 hours. But she'll never be alone to have her calf and give birth without one of us there to help her. And that's exactly the way I see what's happening with the Alliance. I'm certainly not alone. And yes, I'm giving birth, if you will, in that kind of a sense, but I'm certainly not doing it alone. And when the right people are there to be bringing whatever it is that I need to be doing to take the next steps, because this is more than just a one-time giving birth. This is, the nurturing that goes on afterwards as well. So I'll need lots of people. The old African saying, it takes a village to raise a child. And it's the same thing with this. I can get started with it, but there'll be tons of people coming in and helping us with this, and already are to a large extent helping us with things already, where it will really be this group, this co-created ecosystem that I want it to become. And it should be one that everybody who's in it feels good about it. One of the worst things, all the big companies I've worked for in my life, you can always tell when somebody is just like fed up to here and it's time to move on to something else because this is not my place anymore. I don't ever want that to be that for the Alliance. And if somebody's in there and needs to get out, they need to be able to do that as well. We all go through phases in our lives when these things happen, but I don't want anybody coming in because they have to. I want people coming in because they want to. And it takes longer to do it that way, just like waiting for the cow 3 days until she has her calf. But when it happens, then everything works out well and the calf is healthy and everything is fine. If you tried to do it another way ahead of time, you possibly kill the calf or kill the mother or both. And so you wait, and when the time is right, the things happen.
Nice.
Natural intelligence.
I think that's amazing. I think that's probably the best part to finish on. I'm conscious of time, but I just would kind of want to reflect back to you. Really, you're a very considered person. Like you said, this is 67 years in the making, and I truly see that in the way that you've approached this, the way that you see the experiences in your life, and you've brought that in. But what I see is a very genuine person that has these values, thoughts, and you can see that integrated into everything that you've thought about here. And that's often not the case. People say something and it's, what their actions are very different. Whereas everything that you've explained to me has parts of you and what you've explained at the beginning running right through it. And I think that is very powerful because it's not segmented in any way. And all of that together, and it's the same thing, those three things, AI, human, nature, that runs through it. And even all those 6 elements, there's all aspects for that. And that's so joined up, so thought through. That's why it feels like you've been thinking about this for 100 years more than anything else. But I'm blown away. I really am. I don't think there's a better way to describe that. And I wish you all the success in the world. I think it's amazing what you're doing. I wish you all the success. But obviously you're going to want people to reach out to you, find out, maybe join in some shape or form. Where's the best place for people to find you? I found you on LinkedIn, but should they go to website, or what's the best place?
The website isn't official yet because the company hasn't been officially established. So the best place at the moment to go is to the company page on LinkedIn, because you're allowed to do that without an official street address or anything. So that's where we are at the moment. As I said, I'm doing lots of things in the background. I haven't posted a lot recently on LinkedIn because there's nothing really new. It's just going through the bureaucracy, if you will, but that's an important part of it. But once that's ready to go, and we already have this list of people who are following us, then it will be easy to reach out and say, and we've been doing this through email newsletters and things as well, that anybody who can help us with things like getting the AI systems up, anybody who can help us with making connections to other organizations, anybody who can help us with getting the financial basis set up first so that we have enough money to be working from to make sure we get all 6 sections set up in a way that people can start interacting with them. Because easy things like a blog, well, we don't need anything to be able to do that. But with other things, and we also have, although there's not much in there yet, we do have a YouTube channel where we have some meetings that we've had to discuss how this is working with other people who are already followers that we did last year. So those are the two places at the moment. But if you are on the Alliance page on LinkedIn, you will see when the announcement is made that the website is officially live, or when we officially have our registration in Estonia, that will be put in there, so that when we actually go into things and start, or if you'd like to keep up weekly, just reach out to me on LinkedIn and I'll put you on our email newsletter list. And every week we send updates there about what's going on as well. But we love the fact that you're supporting us so well, Colin, by helping us get the message out. This has been a wonderful opportunity, not only to speak to you, but to get other people, to give them the opportunity to find out what's happening. And we're so grateful for all the support you're giving us now. And who knows, in the future, maybe, I don't know, 10 of us will all come on and talk about the Alliance together. We'll find a new way to talk about this together. Or you can come and be on the other side, and you can ask the questions that you want to talk about, as you're doing now, but we'll do it the other way around. I don't know if you'll carry on. Who knows?
Nice. I'm excited to see where this goes. So yeah, don't rule anything out. So I will try and I'll repost this when I can into LinkedIn. I'll put the links for people to reach out to you. But for today, thank you so much, Rhonda. It was a real pleasure. You've blown my mind, as I've said many times, but you've opened up my mind to so much possibility and leveling things up in such a beautiful way. So thank you for your time. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you. And that's it. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Colin.
Okay. Take care, Rhonda.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.